Views expressed by Casters Guild members are only the opinions of that member, and that could change from day to day. Guild members may use mature language, but that in no way means they are mature. Listener discretion is advised.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, George Lucas had an idea that changed the lives of hundreds of millions of people. Now we wonder how cool it would be to have the Force or smuggle goods through the Kessel Run. You say there's bounty hunter on my tail? I've got a bad feeling about this. That's the spell we're casting tonight on Casters Guild. Thanks for tuning in to the Casters Guild. I'm the Guild Master of Production, Rick Perry.
And I'm Guild Master of Color Commentating, maybe? Baron Kane.
And tonight we have on a new guild member. Feel free to introduce yourself.
What's up? I would be an inductee guild member. My name is Brandon Baldwin. I Minnesota born, living here in the state of Tennessee. Not currently playing any hockey, but that's what I love to do. And that's unfortunate that, this situation is preventing everybody from living their usual lives. But here we are. And one thing you can always count on, even when we're staying socially distant, it's just such a strange term, chit-chatting about Star Wars. How can you go wrong there?
Especially now.
Right?
Now's the time to catch up on the Star Wars. There's so much content out there than just the movies. If you're looking for something to do while social distancing, binge watching Mandalorian or Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels is a good way to do it.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Also, Rick, there's another line I think you should drop right now. What's the other good one-liner? The Ugnaught spoke it.
Oh, geez. I honestly don't know what you're talking about right now.
I have spoken.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Such a, all right, he fired and he missed.
All right, so Star Wars. We're talking about Star Wars tonight. I think a good place to start would be, what was your first exposure to Star Wars?
That is a really good opening question there. Good job, Rick.
Absolutely. Yeah, timeline.
All right,
and
let's just ignore it. Let's just ignore it completely and move on.
I started this one off with a firecracker and then just swept underneath the rug.
Well, let's let Brandon go first on this. He's our guild member, and we'll see what he's got to say on that.
Absolutely. So I remember, my first introduction to the wars, if you will, was I think it was when I was 5 years old, 6 years old. I remember my mom had these old VHS collections. There was a 3 VHS box set of Episode 4, A New Hope, Episode 5, Strikes Back, and then Episode 6, Jedi Return. And I watched them until they basically didn't play anymore. I loved them so much. And I remember, because we had to go to Blockbuster, I think they were trying to see if they'd repair the VHS, but we just ended up buying a copy for the one that was messed up the most. So, but yeah, ever since then I grew up. I loved I collected all the figures, the toys growing up, had a lot of the Millennium Falcon and the AT-AT walkers. It was the best, man. It was probably one of my favorite things, one of my favorite memories from childhood growing up. A lot of it has to do with Star Wars. So it's always been near and dear to my heart. And I actually have an old Star Wars, the old Republic era Sith Empire tattoo right there. I got some plans for some other work as well, but that's yeah, man, it's always been just a big interest of mine, big love of my life.
Very cool. Maybe we can figure out what you can kill so that we can put it down as your clan emblem.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to earn my coat.
Right. So I think my first exposure, honestly, it was probably a video game before it was anything, but I didn't recognize what it was because, I hadn't seen Star Wars at the time. But my first real exposure was, my parents were bowling, and, back then everybody had leagues, and, everybody went out on those nights and they did their leagues. And they would take their kids and put them in the bowling alley little daycare.
It's
And
funny. I grew up in a very similar, like my mom
right,
did the exact same thing. Yeah.
right,
I
yeah,
swear to God, like for like 7, 8 years of my kids growing up, it was just like that.
yeah. This is early '80s too, so it was a lot of wood paneling, a lot of smoking in buildings. Yep.
Yep. We
So
grew up very similarly.
Midwest though, man, that's it.
Yeah, that's right.
So they put me in there, and all the kids were already there, and I think it had already started, but it was The Empire Strikes Back. The Hoth invasion had just started, and I'm in there with my crackers and my Kool-Aid, and we're just watching that. It was really odd to me, especially considering I didn't see New Hope first. I saw this, so yeah, it was really good. I'm glad I went back and watched it again. Again, really young, but I think it was a good intro, especially considering everybody apparently loves that one the most. So yeah, that was my exposure.
That's awesome.
So with you guys, I kind of feel a little bit like an imposter.
An
so,
imposter.
so I'm not proud of this story that I'm about to tell, but this is basically the rundown.
Show code, man. Show code.
Back when I don't remember how young I was. I was probably elementary school, so like third or fourth grade. I would bounce back and forth between my mom and my dad a lot because they were divorced. And there was a summer I was spending with my dad, and that was the summer where I met my new stepbrother. And he was 1 year younger than me, but Star Wars was his favorite thing in the whole world. And at that point, I was like, "What's a Star Wars?" And so they were like, "Okay, well, let's watch Star Wars." And they pulled out the VHS tapes. We watched them in order. Those are the ones that were out at the time. So 4, 5, 6. And I just don't think I was old enough to appreciate them at the time. I was just kind of like, "Oh, that was neat." You know what I mean? Like I didn't really know what was going on, I don't think. But then later on, and like here's the part I'm really ashamed of, episode 1 came out. And my stepdad at the time, I was back with my mom, was a big Star Wars fan. So he took all of us to see Star Wars. And I saw episode 1, and I was older, and I was like, that was the coolest movie I've ever seen in my life. Right, I know, episode 1. So ashamed, like I said. But then I went back and I watched.
Oh my god! I totally want to hook up with Jar Jar.
Dude, I mean, like, as much
What-
shit as the prequels get, I love those movies still. Like, I mean,
what year did that come out? What year did episode 1 come out? That was
it's like in the early 2000s. Like,
If only we had an information superhighway at our.
Hold on, I'll Google it right now.
What year did episode 1 Star Wars come out?
I already got it, but I'll let you guys get it.
United States of America, Star Wars, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace was released on May 19th, 1999.
Oh shit! Okay, so I was like a year off.
99. I was 12. So like I think I was the target audience for episode 1. Honestly, being 12. 13.
I imagine, yeah, you would have been.
So I mean, yeah,
Hasbro and all that.
yeah, I mean, it hit me just the way it was supposed to hit me. And then I went back and I watched the originals, and I was like, no, these are the coolest movies I've ever seen.
Right.
So yeah, I just really enjoyed Star Wars from that point on. But like, I made sure to see everyone in theaters since then. And so while my first experience with Star Wars wasn't when I got hooked, when I watched the prequels, that's when I got hooked, and then went back and then appreciated the Tridge, if you will.
The Tridge, I love it.
I will veto any guilt decree when that comes down right now.
Oh Lord. Something along the lines of it must be referred to as only such going forward.
I feel like I've got Star Wars cred now. Like like my big cosplay they do all the time is I got a pretty good Jedi cosplay. I'm probably going to be joining the Rebel Legion soon. I've got my own lightsaber. I've seen all the movies. Binge watched The Mandalorian. Started watching Clone Wars. Like I feel like I'm a little bit more.
Well, let me tell you this though, and I'm not bashing what you just said, but especially for our viewers at home, when you watched episode 1 and said you loved it, that was all the cred you needed. You were in.
Sure.
I am not a huge fan of the original trilogy, but I can definitely admit that those were not made for me. Now, I will admit that those were made for George Lucas, but they
Yeah.
were definitely not made for me. But the people that enjoy those, that's great. I'm glad. I am so glad that we have 9 movies that can encompass so many different fields of interest and enjoyment and love that we should all be able to come together in that. So I'm glad that those doors are open. It sucks that
Yes.
there are people standing in the way of those doors or trying to kick people out of those doors. But yeah, so like, because I don't like, what was the one called? I didn't like The Last Jedi at all, at all, at all. But the people that do like that movie, I fucking love. I love that they love that movie because that means we have something in common still, even not liking the same movie. So yeah,
Yeah,
Makes
that's
sense.
a great way to put it. And like, I think that's good. That's something we're trying to do here at the Casters Guild, is stop that gatekeeping that seems to be in just about everything. I think we brought it up every episode at this point.
Yep.
So yeah, let's go ahead and tear down those walls.
yeah, it's something
Especially
that's really
now.
important to me too. Yeah, but yeah,
Especially now that everything is going on, like, yeah, we need to, especially when you find something in common that you can share in a positive way with others, it's definitely a joy to be able to do that. And I mean, there's enough negativity going around without having to add into like, oh well, fuck you because your opinion on Star Wars is incorrect. Like, we all just like Star Wars, and
right,
that should, like, to your point, it should be enough.
right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But what do I know? Oh, and it was funny. Before I forget, mentioning George Lucas, God, love the man. He's an interesting fellow. But I want to posit something now that, fight me on this at your own peril. Ewoks were directly sculpted or modeled from George Lucas himself. Put up side by side a Wicket and that motherfucker, and tell me that those dudes are not, like, look at this shit. Hold on one sec.
I might hate you
Well,
forever now.
I'm gonna Google. I'll
You're
Google it
100%
later.
right. You're
Yeah.
100%.
Cannot unsee.
No, you can't. You can't. And I'm sorry to have to do that, but I know this. Now you know this. And
I might just
now,
have to find a picture and put it in the link description of this episode, just so people can easily click and go,
actually,
yep, there it is.
I think there's one on my phone that I edited because I was like arguing this shit with somebody, and I was like, "No, look at Wicket." That was the only thing. Like, okay, this might sound somewhat hypocritical based off of segueing off the previous topic. However, I was not belligerent or unkind, but I did get upset at someone arguing that point with me. But that's because it's just based on fact and science. You can't argue science.
No, yeah, no,
Yeah.
except for Pluto being a planet. Pluto is a planet.
Oh my God, thank you. Yes, Pluto is a planet. You can't tell me different.
That's
Part of
that is where
that's
science
part
is
of being a geek, though. That's part of being a geek, though, is being passionate about these things and
you know what?
having those discussions. You can do that without getting belligerent.
You know what's
Oh,
funny
absolutely.
too is I'm noticing that all the geeks are. I'm kind of okay. You know what? This is a War in the Stars, so we'll keep it there. But I notice all the geeks support Pluto being a planet, and all the nerds don't. I blame I blame Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I mean, I do love him, but I can't, like, that's the one. I was like, really, Neil? Like, this is what is going to end it. This is our deal breaker, Neil.
This is it.
I was like, why? I loved you. The stuff you say sometimes, it's just like, so
Don't
like,
forget the Star Wars episode. Welcome to our episode on Pluto.
Pluto is a planet.
Our next one is going to be on Neil deGrasse Tyson.
We're going to actually have Neil deGrasse Tyson on, so watch.
Please don't. I will fight him.
He's going to be the only guest to ever get denied membership to the
Right.
guild.
It's not even going to be an argument. We're going to get into fisticuffs. Queensberry rules.
Just like invest in some halberds because you got to stay 6 feet apart.
Oh, that's right.
Or spear, good spear.
I have the katana from Bleach. That'll work.
There you go. Yep.
Social distance fighting.
That's
The
right.
Zanbatsu.
Yeah, I don't even know what it was called. It was a gift.
Well, hey, weaponry is weaponry, my friend.
That's right. That's right. So, anyways,
I wish I had a weapon of of a more civilized age.
oh, well, let's all go to Disneyland.
Oh my God. Okay, now you
wish.
brought that up. I have to say something. I'm so ready to go to Galaxy's Edge. I've been watching this YouTube series called Ordinary Adventures, and basically they're guys who have season passes to Disney, and they go to Galaxy's Edge almost every day, and they make videos about the different stuff you can do in Galaxy's Edge. And he was there with his wife, and she was going through the lightsaber ceremony, like because it's like a whole thing that making your lightsaber. And like the first time I watched it, I literally cried. The emotion they put into that, and like I won't spoil. I've already spoiled it for myself, but I won't spoil it for anybody else who hasn't gone.
It was really touching, by the way. He just started crying, laid his head in my lap. I pet his hair.
But like the way they have, like, I want to say it, but I'm not going to say it. I won't spoil it. I spoiled it for myself. But the things that happen and the things that are said, it really touched me and hit me. And I literally cried. And I want to go so bad.
I feel you, dude. I want that real bad for myself. And we were going to be looking into a trip to go, Katie and I, my wife. I think that was going to be like next year's plan, potentially, or a few years from now. We had a cruise that we were going to do this year, which was booked, but we'll see how that goes. I don't want to get stuck out on the sea and all that shit. I can't work from the sea. You got to work from home. You ain't got no work from ocean.
I'll go ahead and say this now. If we start, getting kind of popular with this podcast, we start getting sponsors and everything. How about the first sponsored trip be to Disneyland, and we'll take Brandon with us since he was on this episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I would be so about it.
So let's move on to another topic. A lot of cool stuff has been coming out of Star Wars as of recent, since it has gone into the hands of Disney. We can talk about if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I mean, like, regardless of what you think about Disney taking over Star Wars, now that we have Disney Plus, that means we can watch all the movies whenever we want. We can watch the Clone Wars series and the Star Wars Rebel series whenever we want. And we got a cool new series called The Mandalorian, which, in my opinion, is kick-ass.
Oh yeah, this is the way.
This is the way. Yeah, I was about to say something else, but I had to say that for some reason. I don't know why.
Because when you hear a brother repeat the words, you also chime in with yours.
That has to be it. Yeah. But I am going to say that this is hands down the best thing to happen to Star Wars in years.
Oh,
maybe decades.
I mean, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. And I mean, primarily, I think, if Lucas Studios and things like, weren't going well, and I think Lucas Studios, well, they had Lucas Arts, they disbanded or sold to Disney before for the video games and stuff, because they were kind of getting out of that. Or there's some type of business merger that had to do with that. But anyway, when they officially took them over, obviously a company like Disney, has the resources to, breathe new life into a franchise like that. And in any case, it kept it alive. If Lucas Arts had just kind of gone under and Disney didn't want to reach out and make something of it or buy it, for what Lucas was looking for, what other company than Disney is going to be able to foot that bill and have the, resources to continue to build on it. So I even from a standpoint of, you want to, look at, creative directions that may have differed because Disney was involved, or, whatever argument you could make for that. I still think it was a positive thing because, like you mentioned, the availability of all of these great Star Wars stories and different collections of things that a lot of people may not have known about or had access to.
And let me tell you how ballsy Disney was to say, all right, all this stuff that was canon before, it's not canon.
That was the one thing that I was extremely upset about, because one of the parts of Star Wars I've connected with the most is not even the movies. I've read a lot of the comics and the novels that they've put out, things like that, through like a science fiction novel basis, and as well as, graphic novels, comics. Read a lot of that and played a lot of the video games like the Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Republic 2, the Old Republic MMO. Dude, I know. BioWare is just, and then Obsidian was really good too with the second one. But
for that game,
dude, I know, me too.
Cut that out.
That's the reason I got that tattoo was, because the Old Republic is my favored era
Right.
of Star Wars. So,
Era.
it's my favorite era
my
by
favorite.
far. So, I mean, I don't know. I loved it. I love everything about it. So when they basically said like, okay, outside of the movie trilogies and what we pick and choose is now just cut on the dropping room floor, essentially. Yeah, it kind of sucks. It does leave open more options for them to continue it and maybe just take it different ways. They retell the story and maybe have a different outcome or something. I don't know. They can do a lot of things with it, but I don't know. I just hope that they don't, if they do reproduce it, like there's talks of, potentially somatic or, a series based off of like Revan and the Mandalorian Wars and stuff like that. A lot of the story that Knights of the Republic 1 tells. And I would love to see that. But, again, if they're going to take such a free creative license with it, I'm sure it'll be like the prequels and that I'll enjoy them for what they are. Or even the third one, again, as much shit as the prequels get, third one's one of my favorite Star Wars movies.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
I mean, I don't want to fully segue on to what I think about Star Wars Episode 3, but I could go on a whole
we'll have time.
segment about that.
We'll have time. We can come back to it.
Oh yeah, but I mean, so I think that was the only kind of pain point in that, kind of merger, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But we have gotten some really good video games since then. I mean, Fallen Order was
oh my god, yeah,
amazing game. I love that game. I couldn't put it down for a while.
Well, if you notice, Disney outsources. I mean, it's happening with, we were talking about that other mobile game that I've been playing, and it's another property that's owned by Disney, Marvel. And, Disney Studios has consistently continued to like parcel off all these different, interactive entertainment, if you will, in the form of games, whether that be mobile, platform, PC, whatever. They've parceled it out and outsourced it on almost every level outside of just, management, creation, and publishing.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. Whether or not they're making it themselves or putting it in the hands of the right people, as long as we get good stuff out of it, it doesn't matter. If what you're at is finding the right people to make the good stuff, I mean, props to you.
Yeah, it's just strange that they just don't themselves have any interest in housing a game development of any sort. Like that's just something they're interested in licensing out, essentially, but maybe it's because they don't want to have the time or talent acquisition, requirements to get into, I guess, all of that. Yeah. I guess the whole Infinity thing, I don't know if I think at least a portion of that was somewhat in-house, and I think that maybe that killed it for them. I don't know.
Yeah, poor Disney Infinity. I loved it.
Yeah, it was good.
Really cool figures.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to hell, the game was over, and I started. Actually, that's where I got most of my Star Wars Disney Infinities was after they closed the game, and they were like $5 figures everywhere. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, this, I'm going to get
them out.
Yep, getting Han Solo, getting Chewbacca, getting Boba Fett, which my ass is probably going to repaint that Boba Fett into a Mandalorian.
Ooh.
Hell yeah, that would look sick.
Oh yeah, I can do that too. Oh damn, I'm doing it. Anyways.
Send us your pictures of repainted Star Wars figures. I need to see them. Cast@gmail.com. Send us your pictures.
I used to do it all the time. I don't know if you're familiar with, God, I don't even Marvel. It's like a HeroClix. That's what it's called, HeroClix.
There you go.
When that game first came out, nobody fucking cared about Deadpool. Nobody. So I took a Shield agent, used some putty, turned him into Deadpool, slapped him onto a Wolverine base, and I had a workable Deadpool figure. It was great.
Nice.
Very ingenuitive.
Yeah, still got that bitch too somewhere.
Things are always somewhere.
Anywho, Star Wars. I think there are Star Wars HeroClix too, so we're kind of there.
Star Wars, get your Star Wars here.
Which we were talking about games, and we were talking about Star Wars. One thing I really wish that they would have focused more on is tabletop games. There were some really good Star Wars tabletop games. Like I love the D20 one. That was great. And what was the other one? It was the D6 system.
Fantasy Flight?
Nope.
The one. Okay, no, they use their own dice. They use that weird dice created.
Yeah, I didn't really like that one.
I can't remember what you're talking about, but the tabletop with the die 20, I mean, that was
Yeah.
that was my first introduction to tabletop gaming.
Yeah, no, the D20 Star Wars game was great. It was just great.
My first ever experience with it is quite hilarious as well. It was a predicament. That's how I learned that, the dice are not always fair, and just because you can play somebody who wields a lightsaber doesn't mean you're just going up inside wrecking everything.
Yeah. It's West End Games is the D6 version that I was talking about, which was the one I started out on, and it was great. And I think I played a Trandoshan Jedi, because I mean, why play Star Wars if you're not going to play Jedi? Which thankfully, the Mandalorian, coming back to that, has swept in, and now I want to play a game that has no Jedi in it.
Oh, yeah.
Jedi. Just let me play, a bounty hunter or a smuggler, or even well, I've always had a thing for stormtroopers. I would have loved to have played a stormtrooper game at some point.
Oh, yeah. And then you've got cool.
And then John, yeah.
Now that the Empire's gone, you've got the potential, if you were like setting it in that time period, you got potential of all these ex-stormtroopers, just like they brought in that character in the Mandalorian.
Oh my god! Well, no, and then John Boyega coming in with Finn was like the thing ever. It was like he's like an ex-stormtrooper that is now part of this Rebel Alliance. That was I was living that in the role-playing games I was running. It was great. It was great. So to see them do that with a main character, I think is great. Taking something that's supposed to be faceless and endless, just the nameless horde of people, you plop one out and becomes a hero. It's great. I love it.
The ones that were literally clones, like it made to be faceless and nameless for the longest time.
Yep. Yeah.
So what were the big difference between those? Because I've never played either. So like, what were the big differences between that D20 and that D6 system? Other than the die, of course.
Well, the biggest difference is the die, of course. But I mean, probably the years of lore that developed between the West End games and the D20, because you had the West End games version, and it was pretty much all you had to go off of was the original trilogy.
Sure.
And then now, between that and then the D20, and when I say D20, I mean the D20 system that came out in 2000-ish. I don't mean like the D20, like the Saga system that's come out recently, but all that lore that they got to pump into that. So you had, I think they even had the Old Republic stuff that they could put into that in lore wise. So all these powers and stuff that you didn't have in the first one, you have in this one.
Oh, yeah.
And a really fleshed out class system at this point, because I'm not 100% sure the West End games one had a class system. When we game, we're pretty fly by the seat of your pants, so it's hard to tell what they did and didn't have when we played. But like the whole rogue thing really translated well for D20. The whole knight, the Jedi system, especially when you started pumping in the prestige classes. So you start out as like a Jedi, but then you become a Jedi Knight or a Jedi Sentinel, and all that fun stuff. It's so good. So yeah, I would say the biggest difference is all the lore that went into it, that could go into it at that point in time.
I will say one of the coolest things I think about the current era of Star Wars is I feel like they've brought a lot of mysticism back to the Force. There's a lot of, I guess, uncertainty as far as what it can do and what it can't do, and it's back to where it can do whatever they say that it can do because it's the Force. That whole prequel thing happened, and they were like, "Oh, it's midichlorians," and like I personally think, while those movies were great, that wasn't a good move. I mean, you should have just left it at it's a magical force. Don't try to explain it. And now in this current generation, like they've got this new thing where different Jedi have their own exclusive powers. Like, this Jedi can do this. And it's very rare that like no other Jedi can, or like they're the only Jedi that can do it. Like Cal Kestis in the Fallen Order games, he's got a force slow power where he can like slow down time using the Force, and he's got like this Force memories thing where he touches an object and he can read the memories of that object and the things that's been through. And we've never seen either of those powers in any of the movies that I recall.
Yeah. No, I agree with all that. It and it seems like, I mean, those seem to be, maybe, you know what? Let's just throw a little bit of our lore in there, and feel free to, like, I'm not even gonna waste a guild decree on this, but I I would almost think that maybe that's what makes someone a master.
Oh yeah.
Because notice, like, only the masters had this special quirk, like something that they could do,
Hmm.
and like even like Mace Windu seemed to have his own like fighting style,
Oh yeah.
and he's the only motherfucker with a purple lightsaber.
Yeah, he was definitely a fighting focused Jedi. Like his martial ability, he wasn't like, the guy who was going to be throwing around a whole lot of force powers, but his force energy, if you will, was poured into mastering the art of lightsaber combat, which is why he had that, unique purple lightsaber. So yeah, I love that. You know what? You don't want to waste yours. I'll totally use mine on that. That's a guild decree. I mean, like,
Well,
that's
well, hold on. Before we stamp that, keep in mind that this may already be canon, and we just don't know it.
whether it's canon or not. I mean,
All
like,
right,
I'm going to
guild
say
decree.
it's guild decree. I mean,
All right.
like, I mean, that's part of what makes a Jedi Master. The fact that they take the Force and use it in a way that no one else can, and that is their signature, in the Force. You had Mace Windu and his martial abilities. I'll even say kind of Obi-Wan and the Jedi mind trick. Like a lot of other people tried the Jedi mind trick, but we only ever saw two people in canon use the Jedi mind trick successfully, and that was Obi-Wan and Rey. So Obi-Wan and the Jedi mind trick, Cal Kestis and the Force slow, and like I'm sure those who know a whole lot more about Star Wars than I do could come up with a whole lot more examples.
Oh, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
love
there's one of my favorites is the tale of Darth Plagueis.
No,
I don't
what's
know.
his name again?
Darth Plagueis.
The Wise.
Yes.
He didn't go to 8 years of Wise school to just be called Darth Plagueis. Thank you very much.
No. Okay. You know what? I concede. I apologize. Darth Plagueis, please forgive me.
the Wise.
The Wise. The Wise. You did it
Darth
again.
Plagueis the Wise. Yeah. Oh no, I'm failing so hard. No, he was. I'm pretty sure it was. I mean, it was him that was the legend of basically what you could boil down to a bullet point of the body snatcher, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, he would basically train up his apprentices with the idea of that I'm going to teach them all that I know, train them up, strengthen them. They're going to have something potentially unique about them. And then his deal, his ability that, seemed to be specific to him was that he would do this basically like ritual, have either in their sleep or sometimes in duel, he would basically, cast this ritual that upon striking a killing blow, it would transfer basically his consciousness or soul or what have you into his apprentice's body, and they going into his dying body. And so he would continue on and under all sorts of different visages.
What a dick move.
Yeah. He was a pretty dope Sith Lord though, the Wise.
We're just gonna slap the Wise on everything now.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to just to be safe, right? You got to.
Oh, totally, the Wise.
This is the way.
The Wise.
The Wise.
Oh
I
my God! It totally.
have
superseded
spoken.
The
The
Wise.
Wise.
Do it.
Do it, the Wise.
The only one that would have actually even halfway made sense. Do it, the Wise. Stormtrooper. Oh man, fuck you, Robot Chicken.
What do we think about all these new series really trying to connect everything together? So in The Mandalorian, we saw the Darksaber come in, which was from the Clone Wars. And I think it's in other parts of the lore, but as far as canon goes, the only other place we've seen, the Darksaber is in Clone Wars. And now Ahsoka has been announced for season 2 of The Mandalorian.
I love that they are taking these cartoons and making them canon.
I do too. It really broadens, the different like stories that they can really tell, and the more, obviously with like we spoke about, the disposal or dumping of canon in certain places.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to get some back that we can count among the attributed Star Wars universe, official or whatever, otherwise.
Oh my god. All right, now I'm going to have to use a guilt decree to stop this.
I would rebuttal by countering your decree with making it into a T-shirt.
Oh no! Oh! Oh my god, do we have 2 T-shirts that we're making now? Oh man, oh my god. This is so good. Anywho, so yeah, no, I guess in the vein of your original question, like the whole them taking everything and tying them together, I love that even they're taking old stuff that they have deemed not canon anymore and are kind of making it canon, even little parts of it.
Examples?
Well, there was like, well, the whole thing going on with, I can't remember the characters' names, but they did the whole book series on the Rogue Squadron, didn't they? It was a book series, right?
I believe so, yeah.
I know it was a game, but I think there was also a book series. But like they're taking, I know that they've at least made nods to it in some of the recent films. But I mean, hell, you make a nod to it, it's essentially even that aspect of it has become canon.
So I think it's kind of touches on the differences between like continuity and canon.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So like continuity, you have things that aren't necessarily canon, like maybe they're an AU or alternate universe. Maybe they're like an AU or something like that. But it kind of gives you an idea of things they could do in the future in canon. So like they're like, this isn't canon Star Wars, but like this is definitely a Star Wars thing. And just because it didn't happen this way doesn't mean that the things that they did someone else couldn't have done in a very similar way in canon.
Okay, that's a fair point.
But it kind of, yeah, it definitely supports your point that like they make these nods toward these things that weren't canon, and like, you know, they're at least saying, while not canon, it's definitely continuity, and like and that's how it starts. You know what I mean? Just because it's continuity, we could get it back into canon.
That's true. Yep. And I think I also can appreciate like some of the directors that they're having come in that are doing these TV shows and doing these movies and stuff.
Star Wars. Absolutely.
Star Wars.
So, from what I understand, it's been made canon now that the lightsaber colors actually mean something. Is this true, or am I reaching?
As far as current like canon and everything else?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know they absolutely initially did. It kind of seems that way. They have they've held on to, you know, with Rey. Wasn't it Rey's that went green, or Kylo after he came back? It was green.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was misremembering. Anyway, I've only seen
hers
that
at the end
once,
of the
so far, or twice.
Spoilers, which if you're listening to a podcast about Star Wars, you should expect to hear spoilers anyway.
Right. Probably should have disclaimed. Sorry, but
her lightsaber went like a yellow orange, if you will.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, that's along with Luke too. It was interesting. I think that was a little bit of their nod to like Revan's mentality and potential, you know, bringing that up. But, you know, with the whole gray Jedi idea, something that walks the line in between, but respects the power of both, and, you know, such and such. But, you know, to the original point, I believe that they do. I don't know for a fact. I could be wrong. Fact check. But I mean, they definitely did. I mean, you know, Blue was your guardian, which, you know, they all kind of they played to the strengths of the Jedi wielding it, or, you know, Force sensitive person wielding it. But yeah.
Yeah, because I think it used to be like yellow, like at least in the games, like yellow was like Sentinel, wasn't it? Or something like that.
The only
Yes.
people in canon to carry a yellow right now are the Jedi Temple guards. So I mean, like, yeah, that makes sense. And Rey, of course, Rey.
And Rey. But that kind of goes in, like, again, let's just go into the whole Sentinel thing. Sentinels were supposed to be kind of like the in between, like a Jedi Knight and a Jedi Counselor.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're mystic, but they're also able to fight.
Right. They have both political or charismatic abilities or skills, but also have good fighting technique and familiarity.
which Leia would have been a counselor.
Yeah, absolutely.
But from what I understand, is she went through the training, like the movie Leia went through the
Hmm.
training, but she gave it up or something like that.
Yes, it was because, from what I recall, I believe it was she was, or at least alluded to. I don't know if it came out straight and said it, but I believe the reasoning behind that was she was having these force visions, in her sleep or dreams, essentially, that she interpreted as force visions. That she kind of saw what Ben would potentially eventually fall to, or that he would fall to the dark side, essentially, and the things he might become capable of. And so in order to try and distance the possibility of that happening, I guess was her thinking, she basically gave it all up. She threw her lightsaber as an unused tool into whatever, I can't recall what it was found in or whatever, but probably kept close by in personal quarters. But I mean, that was essentially, I think, her breaking point, her turning point, if you will.
Probably had something to do
So
with the fact that she wanted a romantic relationship and like to be a mother and to be a loving wife and things like that. And the standard Jedi way is so divorced from emotion. And Leia, I don't think would be able to see herself as an unemotional person.
well,
Like she'd
at the
rather.
same at the same time too, we're talking about a Jedi Order that was founded by Luke Skywalker. Was he even still forcing those things on
I
people?
don't think he had kind of, I think his intent behind it, because depending on, see, this is where it gets a little convoluted too, because, you have the new continuity. So like the old school thinking was, he went to, I believe it was Yavin 4 and rebuilt basically what would become the new Jedi Temple with Kyle Katarn, which was another Jedi counselor at the time,
Hmm.
within one of the only surviving ones. So they kind of restarted those efforts there. But then in the new movies, you have Luke, starting a, a similar type of concept, but Kyle's nowhere mentioned or referred to. And I don't think that maybe they did elicit the planet as Yavin 4, but I can't quite recall. But, essentially, yeah, that was what he was attempting to do, was kind of restart that. But I think one of the founding ideals for him personally outside of that is to, you know, not close yourself off to those things, be aware of them, you know, and approach them with the necessary caution. And that goes for, any type of emotion, positive, negative, however you look at it or refer to it. That was the type of, I think, ideals he had, pressing that, like, that gray line, not doing necessarily, such a black and white line of this is what's good, this is what's bad, but opening that up to interpretation and basically allowing people to, some situations may call for drastic measures, and that doesn't make you not a Jedi, things like that.
See, I got the idea, and I could just be wrong. I might have been looking into things a little bit too much. I got the idea that he was sticking a little bit closer to the original ideals because when the books, like the original texts, started to burn, like he was like freaking out, and he was like, how are we going to do this without the original way? And then like Yoda was like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like if it burns, it burns. Like you are Jedi, she is Jedi. What you make of it is what you make of it. And like I felt like that was a lesson he needed to learn in those movies. So I don't know. Maybe like I said, I was looking into it a little bit too much, but
No, you very well could be right. I think up to a certain point, maybe, speaking specifically from the newer movies interpretation or telling of that particular subset of sequence of events, his time schooling, maybe he did try to heavier hand the teachings originally as, they were written or what have you, and sticking very literally to them. But if that was the case, and I think you may be right with that, Ben and what eventually became of that with Kylo Ren was certainly what turned him more to the gray side of thinking,
right.
I think
or at
yeah,
least in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. No. I definitely agree. I'm loving this too because like I don't want to say I have a rudimentary way of thinking with the whole Star Wars world, but it's always great to listen to what other people's takeaway from a lot of the lore and the things that happen because there are things that happen that you see but you don't necessarily put a lot of thought into. And then you talk to somebody that did put a lot of thought into it. It's like, oh my fucking God, that's a great point.
Oh yeah.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. A lot more people would probably, know, love, and appreciate that if liking Star Wars was just enough.
Yeah, that's true.
The wise.
The wise.
But yeah, I don't know. And that's that's the great thing about Star Wars, like you said, it's so far reaching and it's got so many different things. And I also really enjoy speaking to others and, learning what their thoughts are. And that's another thing about like how I mentioned, Star Wars Episode 3, specifically in regards to opinions of or, talking about things with others. One of the reasons why I think like I get so hard onto or attached to, if you will, Star Wars Episode 3 is like it's this great like telling of, in my opinion, it's a great telling of, kind of the reason why this character who we knew from the originals was so integral or so important, and kind of how he became to be the man behind the electrical mask and everything else. But really what kind of, stuck with me about that too was his fall and how it affected his relationships with others, his blind acceptance of like, this is the way I'm going to achieve, saving Padme's life or what have you, and not seeing the side effects, having Obi-Wan watch him go down. And then ultimately the conflict between them is what gets me. You want to talk about something that may show code, I'll admit. You want to talk about something that makes you cry like every time, like I just about every time shed a tear in that final dialogue between Obi-Wan and Anakin. You were supposed to bring balance to the Force, not would it leave it shrouded in darkness or lead it into darkness. And then you were my brother, and that shit, it always hits me real hard. And I don't know, man, it just kind of it's almost what you call I don't know, a comparison or something that you could relate to. A lot of people can relate to that in real life. They have somebody they're very close with. Things change. Obviously, you're probably not, on Mustafar, fighting over a lava pit. But
you know what?
disagreements happen or people's change.
Feel like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that exact same thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's like when you're in a heated argument with somebody who you love with the deepest core of your being, and hell, to the Jedi, he's probably the person he loved most in the world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You think about getting in an argument, a heated argument, one that is going to end in the destruction of your love. I mean, what the fuck does that feel like? It
Yeah.
feels like you're fighting over a lava pit.
Bouncing from, droid to droid, dipping in lava and nearly falling in.
Yeah, it feels like you just got your fucking arms and legs cut off.
And then burned.
Yeah.
And left for ashes.
Yeah, but then even think about that. It's like you think about it, that Anakin, being the clearly toxic person in that relationship, thinks that he's in the right.
Oh yeah.
He's been fed all this toxic information, all this toxic feelings. He was in the right in his heart and soul.
Mm-hmm.
But
he even said so. I mean, like that was one of his lines. Like in my eyes, the Jedi are wrong.
Yeah,
right. Whatever the actual quote is.
Exactly.
But then you look at Obi-Wan, who is, clearly has flaws, but he is the more sensible one in the quote-unquote relationship, and he did what you should do. You cut that toxicity out of your fucking life.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it literally. he cut that shit off.
He had the high ground.
Yeah, and really that was Anakin's fault. Let's just face it.
I mean, yeah, he even was like, bro, I'm trying to like, please don't make me kill you right now.
Yeah. He's like,
people talk about that being like stupid, that like, Obi-Wan, because he had the high ground. Like, I just want to take a second to like, Obi-Wan pulled that maneuver on Darth Maul. Like Darth Maul had the high ground. So Obi-Wan pulled the maneuver where he jumped over him and, was able to win that fight. So Obi-Wan had the experience of, if you do this move, this is my move. Like, I know how to defend it. Like, I know
right. I know how to chop a motherfucker in half.
Right. Like, I invented the jumping over a dude and flipping and like cutting him from behind. Okay. Like, you can't do this move to me. And tried to tell him, Like, I don't think that was dumb at all. Like, I think that was just fine.
Like he just looks at him. He's like, "I am the floopty doopty cutter and haffer. That is the name of my move." All right, Obi, we need to talk about this. Let's kind of source this out a little bit.
This is my Jedi power. It's called the Floopty Alley-oop.
I ran it through a couple groups. They seem to support it.
Yeah, I'm rolling with it. You cannot change my mind. Not this time, Windu.
Leading into it. Oh my god. Anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
but when you look at, and I think that's a lot of the, you know what? I'll even go back to Neil deGrasse Tyson. When
Full circle.
Right. When he gets to these shows and these movies, these sci-fi and fantasy movies, and his go-to is, well, see, this isn't realistic because it's like, you know what? Fuck you, Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's not why I watch these. I watch these for the journey. I watch these for the magic, and most of all, I watch these for the metaphors in these stories. And that whole fight on Mustafar is just a huge fucking metaphor to me.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Even more so now that we've talked about it.
Yeah.
To be fair, Neil deGrasse Tyson has addressed that before, and he's like, I love Star Wars and I love these other movies, and I enjoy them for what they are. Most of the time when he does that is because people come out and ask him. They're like, we need you to like go ahead and tear this movie apart as far as scientific accuracy. And like he's like, all right, well, I guess if it's what people want, you know, then I'll do it. But yeah, like he's come out and said that before.
Fuck Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Well, I guess he's never going to be on the show. Thanks, Brad.
You know what? I will even say this. No, I can't.
Yeah, you're not. I was going to say, wait. Hold on.
Wait, hold on.
Don't,
No. I don't know. I don't wanna.
No.
What? He's just not going to be on the show if I do this. That's all it is. Okay, I'll hold it. I will hold it.
You hold.
But unofficially,
Unofficially,
fuck Neil deGrasse Tyson. Okay, go ahead.
The wise.
I will not hold the guild to that.
All right. Whew. Star Wars, guys.
I love Star Wars so much.
It is. Now we just got to organize our thoughts. The how.
Who is your favorite Star Wars character? You get one.
Oh, what the fuck is wrong with you, man?
One. If we want to continue the conversation afterwards, the other Star Wars characters, that's fine. But as of right now, for the answer to the question, you get one. You get one Star Wars character. Who's your favorite Star Wars character?
Can I say one that I'm being facetious about first?
Sure.
Salacious Crumb, baby. But no, for real, like probably because of my attachment to the Old Republic, I'd probably have to go with like Revan or, you know, one of the Jedi of the House Shan, Bastila Shan or Bastille Shan. You know, they were very, very prominent characters or you know, people in those timelines and everything else. And especially Revan, he was, I mean, the driving force behind, you know, a lot of what happened. He, you know, basically said, you know, to hell with what the council says. And, you know, Malik and I feel that it's just to go and actually be a part of this galactic conflict that we're in with the Mandalorian Wars. And, you know, they won it for the Republic based off their actions and the people that followed them. And, you know, that to me was really cool. Yeah, they ended up getting, you know, turned to the dark side when they went searching for the Sith planet or homeworld, I believe. But they're just by far one of the most interesting characters to me. And I think a part of that too, though, is because when, and maybe this will change as the canon as it is now continues to grow and gets, you know, explored more or, you know, expanded upon. But I think that, you know, one of the reasons that Revan is so interesting or appealing to me is because of his complexity and the amount of lore that is available for not only that time period, but Revan himself. And, you know, a lot of that we didn't or don't have about a lot of the existing characters in the series, especially ones that aren't big names in the franchise. Like, you know, I mean, really, like think about the original trilogy, the Tridge. I mean, Bosk and IG-88 and Dengar, like these fucking badass bounty hunter gang that rolls with Boba.
Mm-hmm.
They get one like shot of or two shots of screen time around the huts. Like, what the fuck is up with that? And not to mention, obviously, Boba got played like a bitch. Let's be real like that. All right,
What, 4 lines?
that's something.
Look, I'm just saying, anybody that likes Boba has to have gone off of some fucking novelizations or comic books. Because if you like Boba from the fucking movie, what's wrong with you?
Aesthetic. I mean, like people.
yeah,
if you like
the visual they nailed. Like,
Oh yeah,
like,
no, the
that
visual
shit ain't no
great.
lie. But yes, you're right. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, he got played dirty.
Oh yeah.
But okay, so that would probably be my pick, Revan. If I'm going, overall canon. If I'm having to go theatrical releases only, like the big 9, then 100.
canon.
Right. Then if I have to go that way, then it's 100%. Oh shit, hold on. All I can think of is Revan now. Darth Maul, excuse me.
Oh, okay.
His race, the Zabrak, are my favorite Star Wars race.
They really are cool. I like playing them in not Galaxies. I didn't like Galaxies. The one the Republic, the Old Republic.
Yeah, the Old Republic MMO. Yep, that was
That's
mine
a great
too.
game too. God damn, I
It
wish
is
they'd
such
done
a good
more
game.
with that. So good.
Me too. It was so good.
Sure.
Even if they went back and took that and made it into just they boiled it into like, if they shut down the servers if they ever boil that into a single player like or even co-opable like type of experience, it would be fantastic. They never will, I doubt it, but like that game is so good and BioWare does such a good job with all of their narratives and everything, the stories that they tell in their games, similar to Star Wars, in a different light, still intergalactic based, Mass Effect and with Dragon Age 2. I mean, they tell amazing stories.
Definitely, yes.
And that continued all through all the questing and everything else that like all the story that was within the Old Republic game itself, the MMO, was I mean, it was great. It was not watered down. There were some things, like your repetitive fetch quests that are, common amongst MMOs and stuff like that. But like every different instance had its own like story, like this bounty hunter's hold up in here, blah, blah, blah. You're going in on the authority of, if you're playing a bounty hunter, you'd be an empowered bounty hunter guild, or if you were an Imperial, relate it to that, Jedi, Sith, so forth. But it was dope. What about you guys? Who was your fave?
My fave. Okay, so I'm going to have to go with just as an all-around character for me aesthetically and what I like in the show or in the whole series, because I have one character I love who's just aesthetic, but all around I'd have to say Chirrut.
Chirrut Imwe?
Yes.
He is a baller.
Baller. Yep. Like I want a whole fucking movie on this guy.
Well, I mean, it was fucking Donnie Yip, Ip Man.
Yep, Donnie Yip.
Played him? Yeah.
But Donnie Yip, I guess, applies too because he was Ip Man.
Yeah, sorry, Donnie Yen, who was Ip Man.
Yeah,
I love those movies; they're so great. But yeah, I mean, he was Chirrut Imwe in Rogue One. Excuse me.
Oh, which leads me to another. You know what? I'm just gonna say that pretty much all the characters in there outweigh my love of any other character because I love the characters in there.
That's a bold statement.
It is.
You talking about Rogue One?
Yeah.
Just all the different characters in there. You're talking about like, oh god, what was that guy's name? Dal, the little rogue dude or whatever, the smuggler type.
Oh, yeah. Bodhi Rock? No, or
no, it's Cassian. Thank you. I knew it started with a C. He had Cassian, and then his, droid companion. There's always like a lovable droid.
That droid, one, is amazing. Two,
voiced by Alan Tudyk. Oh my god,
ever. One of my favorite actors ever.
Oh yeah,
of course, agreed.
Also, the bad guy looked amazing, and let's face it, if your bad guy doesn't look amazing, you're doing something wrong.
Especially in Star Wars.
True.
Especially in Star Wars, and it had Mads Mikkelsen in it.
Truth.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. People gave it a lot of shit. Oh, it ended on such. It's like, did you not like hear Mon Mothra when she said many Bothans died to bring us this information? It's like, motherfucker, did you not know?
No. Hold on. I'm not going to question your Star Wars cred, but that was the second Death Star.
Oh shit, you right.
Either way,
people still died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, neither attempt went, without,
Oh. Right.
without its issue.
And then fucking Darth Vader going complete baller at the end of that.
Oh,
Oh
Dude,
my
fuck.
oh my God.
god.
Which
I
led straight into the opening for A New
yeah.
Hope. Oh my
I
God, it was so good.
I have pleasured myself to that scene. Can we cut that out?
No, I'm leaving that in.
All
100%.
right.
I mean, we could cut it out, but I'm not gonna.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. You guys' answers makes me want to go off in so many different
Oh wait,
directions.
hold on.
Let's stick with the current question.
Let me tell you my completely aesthetic one.
Okay.
Kit Fisto.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was a cool looking dude.
Wasn't he though?
Yes.
Like I want to play that guy in a role playing game.
Oh my God, what was that video game? There was a video game that came out that like you got to play as a bunch of different Jedi. Like you would pick the Jedi that you want to play. It was a bunch of the ones from the prequels, and like everybody had their different color lightsabers and the different way to fighting, and like you would just run through, and like it was like one of those like kind of isometric top down. It was on PlayStation 1. I don't remember what the game was, but like
I will say if they made an Ultimate Alliance kind of game,
that's kind of what it was
Star
like.
Wars. Oh man!
Except it was all Jedi's, and it was Jedi's from the prequel. I don't know what it was called. It was on PlayStation 1, and like Kit Fisto was on there, and like he was one of my favorite people to play as. That and it might even been a Kit Fisto, I forget, but one of them fought with their lightsaber backwards, and like in that game, so they had like their own unique style that way. And like I would constantly play as that Jedi, and I thought that was just awesome. Anyway,
sounds like Jedi Academy. Jedi Alliance, Jedi Academy 2, Jedi Alliance.
Might have been. But anyway, there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about now that I've heard you guys' answers. Let me go ahead and get my answer out of the way. And it might be a bit of a basic answer, but it's definitely Obi-Wan for me. Good old Ben Kenobi.
There's nothing wrong with that answer at all.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite part of Star Wars is Jedi. I mean, like, there's just something about, like, the mystical space wizards. Like, I love Jedi. And Obi-Wan is like the Jedi. Like, people talk about like, Yoda being like the most powerful force user, like Luke Skywalker being like the hero and all that. But like, when I think Jedi, like, what a Jedi should be, I think Obi-Wan. And like, of course, he's got his flaws and things like that. And the way he goes about things could kind of be questioned. But man, and like, he's just been present throughout everything. Throughout the prequels, throughout the original trilogy, throughout the Clone Wars, and they can't stop talking about him even in the movies and things he's not in. If not for the fact that we are looking at the Skywalker saga, like, just a small shift and the entire Star Wars story could be Obi-Wan's story instead of, the story of the Skywalker family. I think he's cool. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, it could, honestly, yeah, it's definitely the Star Walker saga, like you said, but this really could have been all about Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, it's like they could have very easily done 3 movies before the prequels and then just been like, all right, well, this is, episode -321 to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of this is the Obi-Wan story now.
I mean, I love Obi-Wan so much that like before episode 8 came out, back when it was just episode 7, and we didn't know a whole lot about Rey and like her background, I was sold on the idea that Rey was like Obi-Wan's granddaughter or something like that.
I think that would have been great.
Like, and I think it might have been because just I loved Obi-Wan so much. So as I was saying, I was so sold on the idea that Rey was Obi-Wan's granddaughter because her fighting style was so similar to Obi-Wan's. She was the only other Jedi in canon to successfully use the Jedi mind trick. The lightsaber that called out to her, while it was Anakin's and then Luke's lightsaber, the person who had it in their possession the longest was Obi-Wan Kenobi, while he was waiting for, Luke to grow up enough to give it to him. Plus, the voice that called out her name, Rey, was Obi-Wan Kenobi's voice. He's the one who called from the lightsaber. And I forget how they did it. They took a voice clip of him from the original trilogy, and he was saying something else, but there was the syllable Rey in it. And They clipped it in order to have him call out to her.
It's lovely how we can do things like this now.
Right. Well, I mean, you want to talk about, we were just looking at Rogue One. I mean, restructuring, I can't recall the actor's name,
Grandma, it
but
was like, yeah.
Oh, that looks
Grand Moff
so
Tarkin.
good.
Yeah, it did. It was very convincing.
They
Grand Moff
came
Tarkin
right
looked
out of
real as a motherfucker, dude.
they came right out of the uncanny valley. Like they talk about how like the closer you get to looking like a real person, the creepier it gets because of that uncanny valley. But they shot right out of that sucker.
Oh, yeah.
They were like, nope, we look good.
And that is funny because yes, you go down into that valley, definitely, but then once you get to that real, you start getting closer to this is natural.
Yeah, they shot right out of it.
Oh yeah.
Definitely, in my opinion, the best example of like properly and well done applied effects, graphical, visual effect art and stuff like that. Yeah.
And it's
the Leia wasn't quite as good, but like still
no.
And isn't that funny too? It's like it wasn't. No, that was a different actress. But I've seen de-aging where they use the actor and de-age them, and it looks worse than taking a completely different actor and making them. You know what I mean? It's like, how did you do that?
Well, I mean, another decent example, at least I think it looked. I mean, it was more so for me up the curve than in the valley. What was the Tony Stark de-aging?
And the only reason why that was creepy is because it was so fucking good.
Yeah. That was they hadn't made it out of the valley just yet. Like it was creepy because it looked so good.
For me, it was creepy because it was completely out of the valley to me. Like it almost didn't even look like a computer image
it was like
anymore.
Him back in A Scanner Darkly days doing this shit.
No, sir. This was him. This was like 80s Downey. Like this was like back to school Downey. It was creepy because I never would have thought I would see that Downey in a movie again. And then here the fuck he is. Like, did they just take this from a movie clip? Oh God, no! This is real. What is happening? Yeah, it was so crazy to me how they did that. Again though, that's Disney for you. They're really they're pumping
something.
money. Yeah.
Imagineers, man.
Imagineers.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about after hearing you guys' answers. Darth Vader. I mean, like you can't have a proper Star Wars conversation without stopping on Darth Vader for a little while. You talking about how like he had that badass scene at the end of Rogue One. I feel like in the original trilogy, and it was just because I think probably because what they had available at the time, they didn't do a very good job of showing just how powerful Darth Vader was and like how much you needed to fear him. Like the Star Wars has shown just how much that dude will wreck everything you love. Like in the end of Rogue One, and then the other example I'll use will be in Fallen Order. Like when you come across Darth Vader in that game. Once again,
Darth Vader's in that game?
Have you not played it yet? Oh my God. I sent Brandon, just a little disclaimer. I sent Brad my copy of Fallen Order when I was done because of how much I needed to play it.
Nice.
And I haven't got the chance to play it yet.
Oh God.
When you do,
you can earmuff a little bit, but I have to talk about this if you don't want the spoilers.
No, go ahead. No. I'm cool with it.
But yeah, when he shows up in Fallen Order, like toward the end, like you're just like, fuck. Like I have to like everything else in this game, you stand your ground. Okay. Everything else in that game, everything that comes up to you, when you come against Darth Vader, you run. Like you're like, this is not something like when Cal Kestis feels the dark force energy coming off of him. He's just like, I know this is not something I can stand up against. And then the things he does in that, I feel like he's just bending reality around him just because it cannot withstand being within the same things, can't stand being in the same room as Darth Vader. And then Cal Kestis tries to throw an entire ocean on top of him and he just holds it. Like it's enough to distract him for Cal to get away, but like Darth Vader just holds an entire ocean from flooding into a compound. Like the amount of like, okay, one of the biggest Force things I'd seen up to that point was also in a video game. In the what's the one with Star Killer was in
Force
Force
Unleashed.
Force
That was going to
Unleashed.
be my example for Darth Vader's power, but I didn't have the reference that the
But
new
Force
game.
Unleashed, yeah, you see Star Killer pull a Star Destroyer out of the sky. And I'm like, that's it. That's the most powerful thing you can do with the Force. But like if you actually like sit down and like maybe my nerd is coming out a little bit in my geek. If you sit down and do the math, the amount of pressure and the amount of force something would need to hold back an entire ocean, like the Star Destroyer feat was nothing. Like like the amount of strength with the Force Darth Vader would need to do that is ridiculous. I'm sorry, I just went a little ranty there for a second, but like yeah. And then I also saw a video where somebody redid, and of course they're not a big studio, like it's a fan, but like just because they have your average person has access to better technology to make a movie than they did back in the 70s when they were making the original Star Wars. But they redid the scene of Obi-Wan and Darth Vader's fight, like what it could have been if they had the technology, and like it was an amazing looking fight. Like you can probably just Google that on or search it in YouTube and you'll find it. Amazing fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. I wish it could have been in the original. And like a lot of the scenes that they redo and the parts they remake, they put it in when the camera would have been cut away anyway, so like you can kind of just make your own headcanon that is what happened when the camera was cut away.
Nice. I saw a really cool fan creation of something similar about Darth Maul hunting down these particular like Jedi apprentices and stuff. It was really, really well done. It was really cool. The fight and the fight choreography was extremely impressive as well. The practical and visual effects were good. I mean, it was. I don't think it was like a big name studio. I think it was probably a fan project involved with people who were already working for like a somewhat smaller to mid-sized independent, studio, where they do projects on YouTube or what have you. Because of how well done it was, I would have to assume that they have at least that amount of resource or what have you. But
sure.
I mean, it was pretty cool. They've got a lot of, and that's another thing that's great about Star Wars is people love it so much that they have such cool creations that come out of their love for it.
Absolutely. Just look at the 501st and the Rebel Legion.
Yeah.
The cosplay groups. I mean, they're doing excellent things. Like I found out, like I've been doing some research because I am looking at joining my local Rebel Legion. I just had to get a lightsaber first, which I did.
We get it, Rick. You're cooler than us, okay? Damn.
So, if anything, I've proved that you guys are way cooler than me when it comes to Star Wars throughout this podcast. But I needed a lightsaber, so I procured a lightsaber earlier this year. But then, of course, as soon as I got a lightsaber, like the whole social distancing quarantine thing happened.
The Backstreet Boys thing.
Backstreet Boys.
Well, yeah, it's like we started my hockey season. We got I think it was one heartbreaker loss the first game, came back, kicked ass 2 games in a row, and then bam, America's canceled.
But in my research into the 501st and the Rebel Legion, I found out they never charge for their appearances. They do it all, like technically they're doing it all for free, but what they ask you to do is they ask you to donate to a particular cause when they make their appearance. So if they show up at Star Wars night for the Nashville Predators, the organization for the Nashville Predators has to make a donation to the Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt instead of paying the Rebel Legion or the 501st for that appearance, which, talk about geeks doing good, that's
right. Absolutely.
I think geeks have been really good at that throughout the years, giving back to the community.
Yeah,
which I think is great.
Absolutely. Well, and it's not so much the case in anymore, but it feels like probably, and maybe our generation will be the last that really truly felt that way, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe it'll be split in some way. But as far as geeks, nerds, and not getting a very pleasant social experience growing up in many cases, maybe, we know what it's like to be the little guy, man. We know what it's like to be the one who gets tread on or gets to eat last or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Now, I will say this. I think that era is over.
I do too.
Era of the popular kids picking on the nerds and the geeks because nerd and geek is mainstream now. However,
Mm.
the tide has shifted. Now we have geeks and nerds bullying other geeks and nerds because they're not as geeky or nerdy as them.
Yeah, that's that gatekeeping, that classic
Yeah.
geek. You
So
have to
it's like-
prove your nerd cred or your geek cred nowadays.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
That's
So
not
it's like-
okay.
me.
I have been a geek long enough to see the tide turn the other way.
Right.
And it's disgusting. So it's like
You either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
it very much exactly. Because like I would have been considered just geeky as fuck growing up. Because I watched Star Wars, I read these fantasy books, I played D&D. Now I'm a fucking casual.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
filthy
You know what I mean?
cash.
I
So
feel
it's like-
that. Feel that
So,
hard.
I try to talk to these nerdy people, and they're like, "Oh, you don't know shit." No. It's like, well, first off, you're 20. Second off, settle the fuck down. We're all having fun here, and it's so bad.
Understand, please, new nerds and geeks, that you are standing upon the shoulders of giants, and we are the giants whose shoulders you stand upon.
You stand on the shoulders of giants upon the underwear that is stretched across their head.
Well, I tell you what, I was trying to save this, but
There
I'm
it
gonna go
comes.
ahead and make a guild decree that Baron does know his shit
Boom.
and he is geek enough or
Oh my-
nerd enough. Okay?
Guild
And
decree.
fuck anybody who says any different.
I mean, most of them are gross, so I don't want to. Well, I appreciate you wasting your guilt decree on me.
Well,
I wouldn't call it
If-
wasting.
if I'm gonna fall on a sword, I might as well pick a sexy one. You know what I'm saying?
So you're falling on my sword?
Oh, I thought you would fall on my sword. Well, what about I fall on your sword and then you can fall on my sword? Or no, what about this? What if you fall on my lightsaber and then I'll fall on your lightsaber? You know what I'm saying? We can make a double-edged lightsaber.
Or you could just like,
Just-
well, you know what? Why don't we just hold our sabers in each other's hands for a little while first, just to see how it feels, and then we can just go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. You know what? I'm good with that.
Awesome.
All that staying in. Just letting you know. That's quality content right there.
Settle down, Richard. We've got 2 more hands, okay, buddy? 2 more hands.
If your lightsaber is not large enough, store-bought is fine.
Hey, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. Short hilts are more strategic, okay?
I'll tell you what I was going to save it for, actually, though. What
Yeah.
I was going to save it for was the whole argument, and this is the thing I was referring to, like at the top, where this is kind of what came to mind to me in regards to like a obvious choice for a decree on something Star Wars related, and that's Han shot first.
It's funny. It's funny. We talked about this in the last podcast.
Yeah,
Oh,
our
really?
last guild members, our last guild, and of course you don't know this because this episode hasn't gone up by the time we're recording. One of the guild decrees that was made was Star Wars related.
Oh wow!
I believe what was Kat's guild decree? She decided that
I forgot.
Padme,
We're going to have to write these down, aren't we?
Queen Amidala, Padme, whatever you want to call her at this point, she was in on a
Oh, yeah.
operation pretty much for Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Like that's why she acted so awkward in her love scenes, because she didn't actually love him. Like she was more
Mm-hmm.
trying to make sure he didn't turn to the dark side, or I don't remember exactly what it was. Whatever it was, I was like, yes, that sounds amazing. That's perfect. But like, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it now.
But
We
yeah,
are gonna have to start writing these down. I'm gonna have to go back and start writing these down.
you're right. But the Han shot first thing came up, and we pretty much said there's no debate on that.
Doesn't
This is
need to
just
be
how it
great.
is. It's like it's so ingrained in geek culture that that's just how it is.
Right.
So
It'd be
you
like
did-
saying the cake is a lie. Guild decree. Like it's not necessary. Like it's
Well, then my decree was certainly not wasted. If it wasn't necessary for that, then I wouldn't. Not holding it for anything. Then I gladly lay it upon the altar of Guildmaster Baron.
So where were we in the Star Wars discussion? We just talked about a bunch about Darth Vader, I think.
Yeah, Darth Vader being just an absolutely powerhouse, like mofo, wrecking stuff, and you know, there's so many good depictions of him. I haven't seen all of it, but the Star Wars Rebels animated series has some really good, and even the Clone Wars too has some really good portrayals of Darth Vader and his influence upon the events of that time, within the battles between rebels and the Galactic Empire and everything else like that. I mean, he's a bad mother, dude. Vader is nothing to fuck with.
I really, really need to watch Rebels and Clone Wars. I've started Clone Wars, but like I haven't even gotten out of season 1 yet. Like I've got so much to watch, but that's exciting to me. Like I'm not like
Absolutely.
I'm not mad at myself for not watching it. I'm excited for myself that I still have it to watch, and it's something else I can do during the quarantine.
Right, and that's another thing that's great. Like we were talking about earlier with Disney Plus and the resources that Disney has. It's bringing a lot of those types of stories in a new available format to where it was restricted availability beforehand. Maybe you had to have, I think Clone Wars was, kind of exclusively available digitally outside of buying it on Netflix for a while. And Rebels was, on Disney's XD. You had to have either a subscription there or a cable provider login, like all this stuff. It's really nice to where it's all gathered in one place on one service, So, I mean, there's that much to be said about it.
And Clone Wars got a new season because of it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that is actually that I was really excited about that. And it's funny because I haven't watched that whole series. I've probably seen like the first season. And it's just like and I say this having watched all of the second season of Critical Role so far, but I just haven't had the time to watch it
My
yet.
wife's big on CR2.
Oh, I love it. Well, I mean, I guess why don't we just talk about the future of Star Wars? So we've talked about everything that we love. We talked about the past, but what about the future of Star Wars? Where do we want to see this go?
I obviously want to see this Obi-Wan series. Like if I kind of gushed about Obi-Wan a little bit earlier, and like they're talking about this Obi-Wan series and like who's attached to it and all that. I'm very excited to see what comes out of it. Unfortunately, it's been delayed, but I can't wait to see it.
I mean, as far as the future, I mean, I agree with you. There's a lot of projects like that for whatever reason, a lot of it I think had to do with the dissolving of, LucasArts as a game development studio and that kind of snowballing into the Disney acquisition, things like that. There was a lot of projects that either, in a lot of different, not even just thematic or cinematic, like games, like Star Wars, was it 1414, I think it was, or 1441, or
just two numbers. I don't know what those two numbers were, but it was two numbers.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like a kind of a Boba Fett or Bounty Hunter style story from the premises that were written about and stuff. And that's an amazing concept, especially in an M rating. You talk about like mercs and stuff like that. Not that it would necessarily need blood and gore over the top or blah blah to be great. That's a lot of that isn't what Star Wars is about. But just the grittier side of the bounty hunting thing, aspect, I think would be kind of cool to see. And projects like that, or even like me mentioning canonically Darth Maul being my favorite. Well, it was I can't recall if it was either fan made or it was just something that was like in stages where they didn't really have any kind of like spots or trailers or press junk type of stuff about it, but there was like supposedly a movie or a mini series for Maul in the works and things of that nature. And that's stuff I would love to see, especially if it wants to delve into, Darth Maul's got such a, when you watch the Clone Wars and Rebels and, stuff like that, you may, learn a little bit more about, since it all takes place in this time. But, Darth Maul obviously didn't, die at the, in the bottom of the pit in episode 1. He was rebuilt cybernetically from the waist down in one of his arms, which is really friggin' dope. They break out almost like spider legs and stuff and, kind of crawl around and shit. And of course, he's still being a badass with his double-bladed lightsaber. He's one of my favorite characters for a lot of reasons.
He made a little cameo in Solo, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
so I think that kind of brings up another point, and I'm going to sound a little bit like a hypocrite when I bring up this point, but I think that's what Disney needs to stick to when coming out with new Star Wars stuff is they need to explore parts that like haven't been touched. So like the Mandalorian, obviously, that was a whole new story. Like that had nothing to do with anything other than the Darksaber showing up at the end. It had nothing to do with anything we had seen up until that point. And I think if they stick to doing stuff like that, exploring stories like Darth Maul's, where we know nothing about Darth Maul really canonically, that's going to be their bread and butter. And I say it's hypocritical because I said I was just really excited about what they're going to do with Obi-Wan. And we've seen a ton from Obi-Wan. But we saw what happened when they tried to dive into a character that we knew a whole lot about. And I will say that's the one thing from Star Wars that has come out that I haven't really liked was Solo. Like I've liked all of the Skywalker saga movies. I really liked Rogue One. I've liked all the TV shows that I've seen so far, but like Solo, I didn't care for any part of that.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think Solo was done. I didn't think it was done all too terribly. I didn't. I mean, it was not near the top of my favorite Star Wars stories told by any means, but I didn't hate it or anything. I didn't have any problems glaringly with it.
I felt like the movie itself didn't add anything to the character. Like if anything, it took away from the character. Like, you had this really cool character and like it did nothing but like kind of break him down. Like I felt like he didn't become a better character because of Solo. He was a worse character because of Solo. And once again, this is all my opinion.
I will say that my big problem with it is I love fan service, but it seems like that stepped past fan service to pandering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seemed like did we need to know where he got his gun from?
Mm-mm.
And
it doesn't hold the significance that his lightsaber does, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. And then the whole Chewie, him meeting Chewie thing seemed super forced, and that could have been done way differently. Especially,
I don't think. It seemed like it was something. It was such an that to me, like him gaining the life debt from Chewie, everything like that. That was such a huge part of the character Han Solo.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest failing of that film is that they didn't explore that enough. They didn't make that significant enough.
They could have done so much too. Like, didn't they in the original lore, which I'm fine with them dropping canon and making some new stuff. But the original lore was he saved him from slavers, right?
Right, and Imperial slavers.
Oh, was it Imperial slavers?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then that works. But they could have still done so much. Like they could have explored that relationship a little more. He could have been make Han an Imperial that saw this and was like, you know what, buddy, I don't agree with this. Let's get you out of here. I don't know.
He was in like Imperial flight school, I believe. He was an Imperial cargo pilot.
Right.
And like in original lore.
And like the whole him getting his name thing, super forced. Again, it's like, can't you just I get it. All these other people don't have to explain their fucking names. And they're weird as hell. So why do you have to explain? It's like, what's your name? Han Solo. Cool.
Yeah, like it's they spent so much time on things they didn't need to spend any time on whatsoever, and all that time could have been fleshing out his relationship with Chewie, maybe his relationship with Lando. I felt like the other romantic interest in the movie was completely unnecessary. Yeah, like I felt like I sound so bad because it's like, we don't need that female character in that movie. It's not a sentence I should say, but like, they could have taken that same character and done way more with her other than make her Han Solo's original love interest before he met Leia. Like, we did not need another love interest before he met Leia. They could have just made her a badass character and did way more with the female empowerment for her than just make her, she just loves Han Solo and Han Solo loves her.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Basically, I could go on and go into what I didn't like about that show. there were a lot of stuff that there were a lot of things I did like too. So I mean, it's not a completely for me, it's not a completely throwaway movie. But there was just stuff I just couldn't get behind, and I think that, like, fuck it, let's just get Donald Glover and do a whole Lando movie.
I'd be down for that.
My God,
Right? I think Donald Glover did an amazing job as Lando.
Yeah, that's probably the best
He's
part
got
of that movie, honestly.
suave.
right? Like we'll just start it out. He's fucking the Millennium Falcon, and then he moves on because that robot clearly wanted him. So why not? Let's just start that out.
But yeah, but yeah, my only point is, if you try to take something, a beloved character like that beloved, and you try to make a movie explaining more about that character, you're just going to end up, I hate to say it this way, maybe like this is too broad of a stroke, but in my opinion, you're just going to end up failing.
Right. Well, not only that, when you're trying to explain things about that character that you don't need to fucking explain, like his name, like his gun, it's like, do we need that? Sure, we got porgs out of it. That's great. But we didn't need to see this, this heist that went horribly wrong for zero reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I mean, I think that was a big point for me as well. Like, I guess this still is somewhat relevant being, tied underneath the Disney umbrella, but, referring to the Marvel movies, I think that's when it really kind of picked up for me as far as quality or my level of interest is when they quit. I mean, you said it well yourself earlier, Baron, that, quit pandering to the audience as far as like, okay, we fucking know who Captain America is now. Like, can we see a little bit about what Captain America does as opposed to like, okay, yeah, super soldier serum, like fucking Red Skull, Hail Hydra, like, let's fucking move past that.
Right,
We don't need to make 6 movies retelling that same shit.
Yeah, if they would have okay, my God. Well, you know what? Let's just do Marvel movies in the next podcast. But I'm just gonna stop here. I'm gonna just throw this out here. If they could have completely skipped Captain America: The First Avenger, started out the Captain America movie with him, like the end credit scene for Captain America: The First Avenger, started out the movie with that.
When he was thawed, yeah.
Right. Thaw that bitch out, and then just be like, "What's happening?" Like, I don't know, Beefcake. Once you get in here, we'll tell you what's going on.
If you need
You're Captain
to
America Wu-Tang forever.
If you need to tell a little bit more about how he became Captain America and all that good stuff, maybe a couple flashbacks in the movie.
Maybe.
Like, you don't need a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need a whole movie.
And you know what? And even then, you could do it really cleverly just by like, oh, what's this? Is this a comic book with my face on it? Oh yeah, I did this stuff, but it's not. And it's like that's all you got to do because they make comic books about that motherfucker.
Oh yeah, he had it. Coulson was carrying his collectible cards.
Right.
That could have been it right there. Coulson pulls out the collectible cards. Each one shows like a little iconic moment in Captain America's life. That would have been it, right? We just solved that.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, this needs to be the new formula for like geeky movies and franchises. If I can get more narrative and in-depth storytelling from the first 15 minutes of Up than I do from the first installment in your franchise, then we need to fucking talk about a rework in that scenario. All right.
The Up formula.
Yeah.
Make me cry in the first 5 minutes, or you're done.
Well, I don't mean like to make me bawl my eyes out like a little bitch. I just mean like explore in depth.
Make me question my existence.
The character within the first however many minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my only point. Like Disney, like if you want to continue to pop out awesome Star Wars content, like lay off what's already, we've talked about enough, and let's talk about some new stuff. Especially like the Mandalorian and everything like that. The scum and villainy side of Star Wars in general, like there's so much you could do. Get away from the Jedi for a while, and once again, this makes me sound hypocritical because I was just talking about my favorite thing about Star Wars is the Jedi. But like Jedi have been done. Let's get away from the Jedi for a little while. You can come back to Jedi later. As a matter of fact, please do once it's a little bit fresh again. But get away from the Jedi, get away from the Skywalkers, get away from that for a little while. Show me some other things that are going on in the Star Wars universe because that's what you did and you fucking nailed it with the Mandalorian.
Absolutely. And the Mandalorian to me is the most like Star Wars, like the thing that's felt the most Star Wars to me since the original movies.
Fuck
like,
yes.
Mandalorian is so good, and it doesn't try too hard. That's one of the biggest things that it has going
Oh,
for it, or the storytelling is so rich, and the experiences are so genuine. The practical effects are fucking outlandish, amazing,
and it's a fucking
and
TV show. These are the TV shows that they're making us used to. They are making
yes,
us used to these TV shows. These other TV shows are fucked. Completely
yes,
fucked.
this is now the new bar. Step up or get the fuck out.
Get the
Like,
fuck- We're looking at you, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. No, I'm kidding. I love that
I
show.
love Brooklyn
I
Nine-Nine.
know,
We all love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It was an obvious joke because we all love it so much.
No, I know. I just, Terry
um,
loves yogurt.
I will.
Look,
Oh,
you can
shit.
kill all three of us by just saying Terry loves yogurt. That proves it.
Oh,
Next episode
Oh.
on Nine now.
But yeah, I mean, I want to see more of the Mandalorian and all of the things
Well-
that it did so well and brought so well, and one interesting thing that there was a lot of theories and theory crafting that could be done about the Mandalorian, because it wasn't spoon feeding us the fucking story. We were learning a lot of things and
Yeah.
picking up as we went
Yeah.
along, and
And there's shit they didn't
right
explain
now.
too.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's so I don't even technically know where in the Star Wars timeline, like dead set, this is supposedly taking place. Obviously, it takes place after the Clone Wars,
Mhm.
but like we've got these really influential Imperial officers and stuff, but is like, is this before
Gotta be before
or like
first.
prior Death Star? Like, like I would imagine so. It looks like it's
Gotta be
definitely
after the
taking
fall
place
of
in
the
between.
Empire. It's got to
Right.
be after the fall of the Empire, but before the start of the First Order.
Right, and they're talking about
That's still a huge chunk of time that it could
oh
be.
yeah, hundreds of galactic years, um, in a galaxy far, far away. But that's the kind of stuff I would love to see and continue to see from them. I mean, they've produced that in, like you mentioned, like a TV show. It's ridiculous how good that is. The theory that I had surrounding it, I thought that they were going to make Mando, become, because I can't remember what he said his real name was, but I thought he was going to be like the initiator of, like, because he was fighting, he hadn't got his brand. I thought he was going to be like the first Fett. That was my theory at the for a while, watching that, and watching his interactions with the other Mandalorians and things like that. But when they had him meet with the armorer, and all of his interactions with her and getting his crest and things like that, I was like, oh damn. I mean, it was really cool what he ended up getting.
Lore building. That is the correct way to build lore. Like
Right.
that is, they didn't do a whole bunch of previous, like, oh well, here's the Mandalorians and like they all have their own crest because blah 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 blah. That was a good example of show not tell. Like,
Right.
that was amazing.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. And then, I don't know about thoughts or what the theory's on about, like, the child. There is supposedly, what, I can't remember his name, but one of the primary writers or show producers is saying, like, debunking the whole, like, this is, Yoda. Although timeline wise, it could, technically fit, because while the primary name of Yoda's species isn't regularly known or spoken across the galaxy, his species does live for, like, I think 800 to 900 years is a typical lifespan. And so and that brings up another fantastic point. One of my favorite things about Star Wars, sorry, I don't mean to rattle on, but my meds for the day are wearing off. But
Get it out while you can.
I know it's just one of those things where, like, Star Wars has such an incredible wealth of interesting and really well thought out and well designed characters and within all of their alien species. And that's another thing, like to Rick's point a moment ago, I would love to explore more of. There's so many things, especially, they have fleshed out some of these things in, video games or comics or books, but now that a lot of that is no longer extremely accurate to what we know canonically, I'd love to see representations or bringing that out, fleshing it out. Wookiees, for instance, with their life debts and their, homeworld on Kashyyyk is like a jungle planet. Like, people who just enjoy the movies or even the TV shows in some cases may not be aware or familiar with a lot of that, and Wookiees and life debts being such a big significant thing for them, and that's just one race out of thousands upon thousands that are really cool that they could do more with.
I'd love to see more of those alien races show up at Galaxy's Edge too, like
Oh yeah.
in the parks. Like they've got Kylo Ren and some First Order troopers and Rey and a couple Rebel Alliance people running around, but like they're very sparse on the more alien looking characters. And like I imagine it's just because it's easier to throw somebody in an alliance jacket and just be like, hey, go play that character, than it is to craft an entire alien head and makeup and stuff like that they'd have to wear throughout the parks. But that being said, I know in a Disney park they can do it, and like it's probably coming. I hope it's coming. Like I hope they just didn't. They wanted to open the parks and like more will come. Like they always build on what they already have, right? So hopefully more alien characters are coming. But I'd love to see more and more stuff. Like I'd love to see Galaxy's Edge evolve as like not just TV shows and movies, but I'd love to see the park evolve and see what else they come along with in the future of the parks as well.
I mean, that's a legit thing. Yeah, it's like I know what I was originally asking. It was, hey, what kind of shows or movies are we? But that's legit, though. I mean, that is part of the Star Wars franchise, and I would love, yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, I'm not someone that gets to go there every year. Living in Ohio with not an expendable income of $5,000 yearly, but that's legit. I mean, they do it with like Universal Studios and the Harry Potter place. They put out all kinds of cool stuff there. So yeah, they got the money to do it. That's fuck Disneyland and Disney World's gonna be the place to be here a little while.
Oh yeah, there's a battle between those two parks that are coming, and the winner will be us. I mean, like you've got all the Galaxy's Edge and all the Marvel stuff coming from Disney. Universal's getting a whole Super Mario. Yeah, it's already opening in Japan, and they're coming over the States too. They're gonna have like a whole Super Mario World as part of their parks. Like, yeah, like I said, they're about to fight back and forth, like who has the cooler stuff, and like the winner will be us because we get to experience both of them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What about you? What a future of Star Wars? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I mean, I kind of going along with Brandon's idea. Like I like gritty. That's what that was the word that kept running around in my head too. But I would love to see them, and I know they talked about this at one point in time. I would love to see a kind of like a underworld, not not like the vampires and werewolves, but like
Sure.
Black market kind of dealings, criminals and stuff. Let's put it on Coruscant and just do like just an underworld type thing, and we won't ever have to see a Jedi. We wouldn't ever have to see a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
But we get to see the seedy underworld aspect of Star Wars, and that would just be great. And I'm not even like I love the villains kind of person, but this would be just great. Like even do it, the main character is like the Star Wars equivalent of a private eye or something,
Yeah.
And it'd be so good. And you would never have to leave Coruscant because it's so big.
You know what I'd love to see in a
yeah.
show like that, even more than no Jedi? I'd love to see a Jedi show up, like a Jedi apprentice or a Jedi master, doesn't matter. Like just a guy with a lightsaber show up and like just get completely put in his place. Like this is not your world. You know what I mean? Like he tries to speak up on something and they just go like, shut the fuck up. Like I'm a smuggler here. I know what I'm doing. Sit back with your like mystical religion and let me take care of this shit. And
even
then, like,
better,
it's completely useless.
Even better would be like a master and the Padawan go down there, and like someone badmouths the master, and the Padawan's like, no, you don't talk to Master so and so that way. He's like, no, this isn't our world.
Yes. Yeah, like the master just like does kind of know what's going on, and the fact that he doesn't know what's going, he knows what he doesn't know, while like the apprentice doesn't know what he doesn't know.
Right.
That's an important skill to have.
Yes. Yeah, I'd like that even more than Jedi's not showing up at all. I'd love the show to acknowledge that like Jedi's are not what's important here.
Mm-hmm. Not in this world.
And I think they do have some reference to that a little bit in The Mandalorian as well. I mean, not to, coddle the balls of The Mandalorian, but it is such a fucking masterpiece anyway, but it's so good. But I mean, yeah, that's it does a really good job of kind of setting that tone. And I mean, oh my, like just one of my favorite episodes even was the whole like the jailbreak scenario,
Oh,
where
yeah,
he
that was
goes.
good.
And I can't remember the name of the droid, but it was voiced by Richard Ayoade,
Oh,
who's
yeah,
an
yeah.
amazing British comedian.
And then Mr. Krabs was in there. That was just great.
Mhm.
The whole episode was filled with
And
comedians.
Bill
right?
fucking Burr was the main
Yeah.
guy.
Oh, have
That
you
was
guys?
the right way to do that. That was the right way. Fill it with comedians and let them just kind of do what they need to do, but like make them still be serious characters. That's
Right.
that's what the Mandalorian not taking itself so seriously. There are so many situations where it can 100% be taken seriously, and they just throw it over their shoulder with a joke, and they're just like, "Nope, we're not going to stop and take this seriously. Like we got story to tell."
Have you guys seen? Have you guys ever seen Strangers with Candy?
I have. It's been a long time.
Okay, so the Candy, the lead actress,
Mm-hmm.
she's in The Mandalorian. You're never going to recognize her because apparently in everything she's in, she looks completely different. She's the mechanic.
No shit.
Hey,
Yeah.
Real? Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, I'd have never figured that one out.
Oh, I didn't. I was looking at something and I saw something pop up and they were like, "Oh, so and so was in The Mandalorian." I'm like, "Man, I must have missed her completely." And looked it up. I was like, "Oh my god, she was like the center point of the whole fucking episode. How did I not see
Right?
that?"
It's easy to miss
Oh,
those things
man.
when you're enamored by those Mando, plates. Beskar steel.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
What a good fucking. Oh, now I can't even remember the term.
Currency or like form
No,
of
no, no.
payment or
No. Well, that too. Oh my god, yes. It's
It's more lore building, and like it's
like
done really well.
okay. Oh my god, what the term for a thing in a movie that is what you were trying to get?
MacGuffin.
Oh yeah, it was like the fucking MacGuffin of the show, and it got fulfilled in like the second episode.
Yep. Then it all just became about the child.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
don't get me wrong, you can't hate on a baby. I mean, for lack of a better term, a baby Yoda, because again, like people give people shit for being like, you just call him that because you don't know what Yoda's race is. Like, first off, fuck you, quit hating. Second
Yeah,
of
dude.
all, it's like, try and look it up on Wikipedia. I mean, because it may have been mentioned somewhere, but it's I'm pretty sure
A lot of
that
fans
part of
call
it is-
Yoda's race the Tridarian.
Ah.
That's never been officially stated, but like
Right.
they call them Tridarians, and like it's kind of dumb. The reason why it's because the race has 3 fingers on each hand, so so like Tridarian.
Well, I mean, like, you're gonna call him a Dagobonian just because he like chills and hermits on Dagobah, like. So, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, it was still like that's how you do, like, they wanted to do Porgs or Jar Jar Binks and like, relate it to, no, fuck that. You story build and make you give a shit about like the Ugnaught and the child. And that's true, well done storytelling as opposed to like Jar Jar Binks. He's the fun loving fuck up. Like, oh, you done messed up this time, Jar Jar. Oh, Sonosa. Ah.
Other people who have worked on Star Wars said that when George Lucas was making the original trilogy, there's a lot of things he wanted to do, and a lot of people told him no. They were like, "That's dumb. That's never going to work in a movie." And so, like, he got told no a lot making the original trilogy of Star Wars, and that's part of what made it good. And then, like, when it got to the prequels, nobody wanted to tell George Lucas no because they were like, "That's fucking George Lucas. He made Star Wars. How can you dare tell him no?" And so he got to make the movie exactly the way he wanted to, and that's how you end up with things like Jar Jar Binks.
That's fair.
Yeah. Probably
Yeah.
had a little bit to do with merchandising dollars too, though. If
Oh,
I
yeah.
had to reckon.
That's also George Lucas, right? I mean, because like that was his whole thing with Star Wars is he maintained the merchandising rights.
Oh man,
So
can you imagine if like the fucking Return of the Jedi came out now with Build-A-Bear?
oh my god,
Ewoks for days.
I think they've already made Ewok Build-A-Bears. I
They
think
Yeah,
probably
there
are
would have
now.
been way more. There would have been so many Build-A-Bear skins.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it would have been
Mm.
wicked.
Oh, Wicket. I still fucking love Wicket, dude.
Oh, Something I fucking found out today. That motherfucker is in so many Star Wars movies, but every single one of his characters' names start with a W.
For real?
Huh.
That's
Isn't
cool.
it crazy?
Star Wars is filled with
I like
stuff like that, though.
Yeah.
I know, like just little like nuggets of like,
Yeah.
how about that?
Nuggets. That's
Yeah,
what the Ewoks
nuggets.
are. Little
I mean,
nuggets.
we could have done an entire episode, honestly, on other popular media making references to Star Wars. Like we didn't touch on
yeah.
it, but
Oh, yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
so many people reference Star Wars, like Final Fantasy having a character named Biggs and Wedge in like every single Final Fantasy, like every single game. But yeah, like that could be an entire episode on its own.
Yeah.
But I think before we get too much into new things that we didn't cover, we covered the past of Star Wars, we covered the present of Star Wars, and we covered what we want to see out of the future of Star Wars. I think this is a good place to end this episode, unless there's any other burning desires of things you need to talk about.
Not that I can, rightly come up with off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think we did a good job nerding the fuck out over this. Anywho, so I think we did a pretty good job of covering the distant past, the present, and the hopeful future of the Star Wars universe. This was less a podcast than it was a self-pleasuring episode of Three Geek. I definitely had a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk about Star Wars again because it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed just listening to us geek out about stuff, because that's pretty much what all future episodes are going to be. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you'll tune in to future ones. You can reach us at castersguild@gmail.com. Please reach out with any questions, anything you might want to say. We'll probably read your stuff on the cast.
Also, we do have more social media coming out here very soon. We're all working on it right now, and hopefully you'll get to see us on, Facebook and Instagram here really soon.
Just check for links in the description.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Oh,
Bye.
I didn't use my guild decree. All right. Hey, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.
I said bye last. I'm sorry.
That was your decree. You used it
That
on
was
bye.
it.
The wise.